All right, grade 8. Well, we are continuing along here in chapter 9, lesson 1, 9.1, part B here today. Here we're talking about evaluate the expression. We're also going to be solving some equations today that involve square root. So this first part says evaluate the expression. Now here in this first example, we have 12 minus 3 and the power of 25. Well, essentially when we have this 3 and the power of 25, that means a multiplication. It's the same idea as like a number right next to a variable or a number right next to parentheses. A number right next to a square root means multiplication. So we want to continue to practice with our square root button. So since we're dealing with the square root of 25, I'm going to come over here, 25 square root, and that makes 5. So essentially what this means here is 3 multiplied by 5. Well, 3 multiplied by 5 is 15. So on the overall, this gives us 12 minus 15. So here we go, 12 minus 15. When I plug 12 minus 15 into my parentheses, 12 minus 15, that equals negative 3. So 12 minus 15, that equals negative 3. And negative 3 is my final answer there. All right. Square root of 28 over 7 plus 2.4. Well, 28 over 7, okay, 28 divided by 7 is 4. So I can think about this as the square root of 4 plus 2.4. Well, so just again to check with my square root button, we're going to have 4. We're going to press the square root button. That's going to give me 2. So the square root of 4 is 2. And so that's going to be 2 plus 2 and 4/10. Well, when I add that together, I plug that into my calculator. Now, remember, if you were to do this by scratch work, you might want to think of it as 2.0 because you want to make sure that your decimal is lined up. And that's going to be 4.4. So I'm not even going to bother entering that into the calculator. But if you just plug in 2 plus 2.4, it's going to give you 4.4. That's just kind of a reminder if you're doing scratch work to make sure things get lined up. Now, here's an interesting one. Now, we were just dealing with the square root of 4. So we know that the square root of 4 is 2. So this, if I take care of this square root of 4, and I make it 2, I'm dealing with 2 to the power of 2, or 2 times 2. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. So that leaves us with 15 minus 4. Well, 15 minus 4 is 11. And that's our final answer there for that one. All right, moving right along. Now we're going to get into solving the equations. And this is not real hard at all, but we're going to solve equations. So I have x squared equals 169. Well, this is pretty straightforward because it just gives you the x squared, which means that all I have to do is go to my calculator, type in 169, which is what I'm going to type in here, 169. All right, I'm going to go ahead and type that in, square root, I get 13. Well, sure enough, 13 times 13 equals 169. So that tells me that sure enough, x equals 13. The square root of 169 is 13. Well, so here we go. 7n squared equals 175. So, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through what I know about equations and isolating the variables. So the first thing I want to do is isolate the variable by dividing everything by 7. So that's going to give me n to the power of 2 equals, and I'm going to come over here, I'm going to clear my calculator, and I'm going to do 175 divided by 7. And that equals 25. All right, so n squared equals 25. Now here I have something that essentially looks like this up here, just different numbers. I have n squared equals 25. Well, so I'm going to have to figure out what the square root of 25 is. So I come back to my calculator. I'm going to clear it. I'm going to type in 25. I'm going to find the square root of that, and that is going to equal 5. And sure enough, n equals 5. Final answer. All right, well, this one here looks a little bit more of an adventure, but not hard. 190 equals 4b squared minus 6. Well, I want to isolate the 4b squared, so I'm going to do that by adding 6 to both sides. That's going to give me 0 here. That's going to give me 196 here. Now, before I continue on, I'm going to pause right there because I want to point something out that's going to be very important. Now, you'll remember back in yesterday's lesson, we talked about how things can have both a negative and a positive square root. Because if we think about it with 169, now our calculator is just going to tell us that the square root of 169 is 13, okay? Because 13 times 13 is 169. But what's also important to remember is that here in this situation, x can also equal negative 13, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And negative 13 times negative 13 would also equal 169. Same with this one here. N squared equals 25. When I went into my calculator, pressed 25 square root, it gave me n equals 5. But once again, n can also equal negative 5, because a negative 5 times a negative 5 will be a positive 25, because a negative times a negative is a positive. All right, so back to this one. Sorry for that diversion, but I wanted to make sure that's something that we're all aware of, that these answers, when you actually do your assignment, are going to have both a negative and a positive number. So here we have 190 equals 4b squared minus 6. To get back on track, we're going to add 6 to both sides. So adding 6 here made it 0. Adding 6 to 190 made 196. So right now I am at 196 equals 4b squared. Well, I'm going to isolate the 4b squared by dividing everything by 4. So that's going to become b squared equals whatever 196 divided by 4 is. So I come over here, 196, okay, divided by 4 equals 49. Okay, 196 divided by 4 equals 49. So b squared equals 49, which means now I'm finding the square root of 49. b times b equals 49. Something multiplied by itself equals 49. So I'm going to go to my calculator, and most of us probably know what that is, but we want to practice with the square root button. 49 square root 7. Sure enough, 7 times 7 is what equals 49. So we end up with b equals 7. Final answer. All right, talk to you later. Grade 8. Bye.